the agenda's here with the full backup, and then you'll see it on the screen, like presentation.
What have we offered to, so do we have agendas for them? Because that's a lot of backup.
The short agenda.
Short, okay.
So it's just the
Okay.
high level.
I don't quite know how to do a lot of things, so I'm going to ask you how to do
No
some
problem.
things in front of
So
everybody.
basically, if you want the floor, and I want the attorney in a second to, so if you want the floor, basically you just say, Chair, Matt, and I'll acknowledge you. During public comment, it's my opinion, it's typically best not to start dialogue just because that'll never end. But if it's a point that you really feel you want to do, just say, Chair, I'd like to respond to that, and respond to it by all means.
Where's my button?
There's no, I am your button. I am your button.
Hey, brother.
Great to see you.
Sir, how you doing? My guy's doing good, by the way.
Nice to meet you.
Did you? Good, yeah. See what I mean, though? Just he's a down to earth,
Scared. I would be too.
yeah, he said to me, he said, I've never gotten such good treatment in my life. These people did more in 20 minutes, and so I mean, you got a spokesman for you there.
Continuously. But I also.
Boy, traffic caught me off guard.
Yeah.
Okay. All right.
Yeah, I'm just gonna leave. So James and I are sort of splitting one, or Bob and James are splitting one, and you got one, and then when we get another member, we'll expand a little bit. So, okay, we're on the hour. Okay, dokes. I want to call to order this meeting. First of all, I want to thank everybody for coming. This is a unique situation we're in, and we're hoping to go forward and get everybody on the same page as soon as possible. So at this time, I want to call to order the Gainesville Regional Utility Authority. Roll call.
Member Carroll. Here. Member Lawson.
Here.
Vice Chair Coates.
Here.
Chair Carter.
Here. We have a quorum. This time, we're going to do an invocation and a pledge. If you would join us. I'll do it tonight. We're looking for volunteers. Someone would like to do the invocation. In months to come, please sign up with the clerk. We'd love to have you. Dear Heavenly Father, Lord, thank you for this day. Thank you for the people you bring into this auditorium. Father, let us please have conversations of peace with understanding of going forward to serve the employees and the citizens and the ratepayers of this great utility. In your heavenly name, amen.
Amen.
Pledge allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay, dokes. The first order of business is going to be general public comment. And let me just touch on this a little bit. This will be items that are not presently on the agenda. We are going to limit the speakers to 3 minutes. We feel that'll be sufficient time. And the total time for this will be 30 minutes. So once we hit the 30-minute mark, we hope that everybody that wanted to speak had that opportunity. And what we're going to ask you to do is just come on up. We're not filling out cards. We're going to try to go ahead and just have you come up and get in line, and we'll recognize you. Just please state your name and go on with your comments. Yes, sir.
Jim Punish. As you know, there's a blizzard of litigation out there challenging your eligibility to serve our community. The city attorney is up to his eyeballs in this litigation. I have been involved in this type of litigation with the city attorney's office, and I would maintain he has no business attempting to represent the authority. And I've asked him to ask the Florida Bar if that's appropriate. Now, what I would ask you to do is I would ask you to get somebody to ask the Attorney General a few questions. Number one, is the requirement that the mayor swear in authority members legally defective? How is that cured if it is? Number two, must a member apply for an appointment prior to such appointment? If so, can this be cured? Three, is the governor limited to the initial appointment of only one member that is not a qualified elector of the city of Gainesville? And is there a deadline to achieve this status? Four, can the city attorney for the city of Gainesville serve as the attorney for the authority and or GRU CEO, GM. We have a special session coming up. I've got a glitch bill to make the litigation go away, and it reads, the initial appointees need not be qualified electors of the city of Gainesville, and that would be added to section 7.042D. So until you have competent legal representation to understand an extraordinarily complex piece of legislation that repealed 1/2 page of our 22-page charter and inserted 12.5 pages of highly technical language that the city attorney has spared no effort to nullify. Until you understand that, you cannot do your job. I've also included rules of statutory construction. And I don't think there's any problem with the appointments. The problem is the litigation is designed to undermine the credibility, if not the validity, of anything you do. So, I would encourage you, and Mr. Scott Walker is here. He's not billing anyone tonight, which is bad for him, but ask him if there's a conflict of interest for this city attorney to sit there and purport to be the attorney for the authority. Thank you so much.
Thank you, sir.
Mr. Conish, but we can ask questions, right?
You may ask a question if you so desire.
Mr. Chair. Mr. Conish, thank you. Are you suggesting a rewrite of the bill? Is that what you're suggesting?
Just a glitch amendment to, the bill can be read in different ways. The way I read it is the initial appointees are different. If the governor wants to get the 5 best people without regard to where they're voting, there's nothing to vote on until fall of '24 anyway, if we're qualified electors of the city of Gainesville. The 1-year man will be gone before the next city election. But there's a special session coming up. You just get one sentence added, all the litigation goes away, and they have to find someone else to sue. I've been threatened with a lawsuit myself for a post in the Ledger Chronicle from these people's attorney. He threatened me with a lawsuit just for writing about what's going on.
Thank you so much, sir. Next speaker, please.
I'm Debbie Martinez. I hope this board will keep its independence. There's nothing wrong with socializing and being friendly with staff. But this is your board. And I hope that you all keep control of it, because that was the whole purpose of citizens going to Tallahassee asking to have a board of experts to govern our utilities. At the last meeting, several people asked that this board have the meetings televised live on Cox Channel 12, because a lot of people don't have the capability to stream, and they're used to watching public meetings on Cox Channel 12. And it's not rocket science, and it would go a long way in building the trust. And that's what I think is so important. To use my healthcare metaphor, we have a chronically ill patient on the table here, and tough decisions will have to be made. Of course, you have to look at everything, the good, bad, and the ugly. And I know this board will do the right thing. Thank you for your willingness to serve.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Next speaker, please.
Good afternoon. Thank you for hearing us. I'm Jeffrey Shapiro, citizen of Gainesville and a customer of GRU. This year, the legislature devised, passed, and the governor signed Bill HB 1645 into law. It modified the city charter with no input from citizens, except for a legislative delegation hearing in Tallahassee that allowed only brief statements from some of our citizens. This violated legislative rules for the introduction of bills, and it paid no attention to, small d, at democratic norms. It shunned a city referendum since the last one in 2018. It failed by a 60-40 vote. There were many problems with the bill, since it had been uncritically assembled, excuse me, in a very partisan manner. One outstanding indicator of problems in the bill was the Economic Impact Statement, EIS, required of all local bills. And EIS states, First, effects of the incipient law on revenues. Second, costs that are entailed. Three, funding sources for economic impact, including potential advantages and disadvantages. It should describe potential impact on governmental services and data used in estimations and certification of all the above by the preparer. The required estimates declared $0 impact. The EIS concluded that the law would only transfer management, thus not affecting utility operations and would lower consumer costs. It charged that GRU was highly in debt, in need of infrastructure refurbishment, and in conflict of interest by providing funds to the city of Gainesville. This neglected the fact that GRU is literally a fictitious corporate name for a department of the city itself. It remains so, though now under management by your city unit, the GRU Authority. Please judge for yourselves the veracity of the EIS. I believe that you will disagree with its claim that economic impact will be nil. This alone is adequate reason for you, the GRU Authority, to ask the legislature to rewrite and refile Bill HB 1645 as soon as possible in order to modify Law 2023-348. This is urgently needed to prevent major economic fallout to both the city and GRU from a failure of the upcoming bond validation process. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir.
Mr. Chair,
Oh, go
Mr.
ahead.
Shapiro, I have a question for you. Thank you for sending to all of us the information. Thank you. I did have a question on the economic impact statement. Is it that it's no economic impact at all, no negative impact, or no positive impact? Or is it just that there's no impact at all?
The figures state 0 impact across the board. It asks for dollar figures of impact in all these different categories that I mentioned. And it's a 0 for all those.
So in your opinion, do you feel that this thing that's happened is negatively going to impact or positively going to impact economics?
I can't say, but
So would you agree with whoever wrote that? I think Scott is the person who wrote that statement, is that correct? So is that why he put 0, because we don't have a way of knowing? Or is it because that's just, there is no economic impact?
he stated there was no economic impact. He didn't say, I don't know. He simply said, no.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Next speaker, please.
Good evening, gentlemen.
Howdy, neighbor.
I'm Joe Beatty. For over 15 years, I have been at just about all of these meetings. Until recently, I would venture to say, one of the most informed citizens in the city about the functioning of GRU in the city. And I was, contrary to what many other people would here say, I'm glad that an authority was appointed. I think we tried for years to get the city commission acting as the board of commissioner, as the board of GRU and the city to bring things in, to control the city budget, to do better by GRU, not use it for a piggy bank. So I look forward to, I was glad to watch the first meeting. I was a little disappointed at the first meeting that you didn't get off the ground running. And in that way, I meant that you didn't tell the general manager what you wanted to see. If I had been appointed to the board, the first thing I would have made a motion for would be for the general manager to give us all the full and complete budget. I would have, expected that the members of the authority would have studied it, and I would have required him to show up at this meeting with his top 2 financial advisors, and I would have asked questions. So I suggest to you that rather than being what appears to be being led and guided by the general manager, I would ask that you took control and you tell him what you want. As I understood the bill, the thing was for you to take action and control. And if you are gonna let the existing general manager continue without giving him direction, letting him direct you, that's how we got this way with multiple commissions, and I think that's how we got here. I'll end there. I also think that you should ask for the policies and procedures, because as a resident taxpayer, both commercial and residential customer, I have a lot of experience with GRU in multiple different capacities. And I think the policies and procedures need to really be looked at, the same with the city, but you're only concerned with this. I also would echo the sentiments of those that think you should hire your own lawyer. We don't need the lawyer for the city being the lawyer for this authority. I thank you for your time. My number, I'm happy to give it to you. If anybody wants to benefit from my experience, I welcome calls. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Clarification, do we have an amber light that'll go on first? No problem. I just don't want anybody to be surprised. I don't want anybody cut off as they're speaking. Apologize, sir. Please state your name and go ahead.
Members, I'm Joe Lobo, citizen of the city of Gainesville. Also, as you may know, I'm a litigant in 3 cases against the authority. This is not against you individually. I have nothing. It's against the creation of the authority, which we maintain is unconstitutional. And the resolution of these cases is not a Band-Aid. It's the repeal of HB 1645. And I would urge you to do that, and also urge you to begin talking about what could we do, or what could the city do, or even what could the legislature do that would not be unconstitutional to resolve the problems. The first step is to repeal 1645. It is our view that this authority has no legal existence, and that what you do in making decisions will be null and void. The only other thing I want to say, I noticed you've got something about a bond validation process on your agenda. I'm not going to stay for that.
But that's, I'm sorry, sir, that's on the agenda. We're only talking on items that aren't on the agenda right now. Sir, you're an attorney and you understand the procedure. Thank you, sir.
My name's Robert Hutchinson, and I'm with Gainesville Residents United, and Joe is turning on a couple of our cases, and some that is turning on some that we're not involved with. I think the utility authority, even though you don't want to deal with 1645, you think it's the legislature's business and the governor's business.
It really is your business. And I'll tell you why.
The citizens have tried to get amendments into the bill by the legislature. They didn't listen.
City Commission tried before us, didn't listen to them.
You they like, you are the ones they will listen to.
And what I'm going to suggest is that you take the position that we need to mediate a solution to the problems that are manifest in 1645.
We do that with a professional legal mediator. And the way it would work is something like, they would ask you or your attorney or your staff to write what would be a fixed 1645. We've already given you a roadmap. There's 200 pages of litigation out there that says these are all the things that are wrong. We would do the same thing. We'd write what we think the version is we'd like to see, and if it were to be passed by the legislature, all this litigation would go away. The reason that's important for you and for the people of Gainesville
Is you're looking at bond validation stuff that's coming up. And you're going to have a really hard time when the evidence that's out there, just in the existing lawsuits, is in front of the judge.
We believe that all of our litigation is needed and that it's important, but we don't want to be the ones people are pointing at when they say, well, all that litigation scared off the bond validation. People, now we can't float bonds, you've got $400 million worth of debt on there.
So it's important for you guys, it's your job now to help solve the 1645 thing.
Much more than it is stuff on the agenda. So we're
I appreciate it, and you and I will still have lunches whenever, we'll always get along no matter what. But like I said before, I believe that's legislators' problems, and the fact that they're not talking to you or something, I don't know what to do about that. But I just, I wish that you guys were around a long time ago, because the citizens were trying to talk to the people back then, and we wouldn't have the biomass or the solar problem, so this board would have never been created, quite frankly, if they would have listened to the citizens back then. So I do hear you, and I'll sit down with you anytime, but like I said, we're worrying about rates and we're going forward, and the law will work itself out. I mean, bond validation, the lawsuits that you guys are filing, that'll be the cure, in my opinion. And I'm just one vote, by the way. I'm not speaking for the board. Yes, sir.
Good evening, everyone. I am Ernesto Martinez, and I have not met the board, although I feel like I know you. I hope to meet each one of you individually and get to know you. And I have great respect for Mr. Craig Carter, who you have chosen to be your chair. And I look at you as the governing board that I believe you are supposed to be. I find it confusing and am a little bit at a loss as to why the city manager and the general manager are sharing the podium as if they had some authority, some import, and they are attempting to direct you and guide you in doing your job. Now, if I have that wrong, please correct me. But I sincerely ask you to treat everybody else, I'm talking to the board, as opposing counsel. Look at each other, respect each other, trust each other, but opposing counsel is still opposing counsel. I respect and honor their position as well, but I really believe that you should remove them from the dais and any authority or any power. Their job, in my opinion, again, is to provide you with what you need to do your job. Thank you and have a good evening.
Thank you, sir. Do we have any other citizens that would like to comment on non-agenda items at this time? Seeing none. Next item. Okay, ma'am, then we need everybody that's gonna comment to get up here. We're trying to make sure everybody's heard.
Hi,
Hello.
my name is Jennifer Davis, and I was hired at Deerhaven Renewables plant as a control room operator. And, okay, I was hired, and I started on October the 2nd, and they fired me on October the 17th. Now, I am a very experienced control room operator. I have worked with Southern Company, with Entergy, with Mays, and also Albany Green Energy. Now, the reason I believe they did not give me any reason why they fired me after 2 weeks, but my reason that I believe that they fired me for is
No worries.
So the reason why I believe that they fired me is because I pointed out their safety violations, and because the plant manager has meltdowns like a little 5-year-old, and I thought I wasn't going to tolerate that. And also, because I was informing my coworkers about the union, because none of them were in the union. Our contract is ending, and I'm trying to explain to them that we're gonna be without a contract. And I did this during a meal period. So they had no reason to be mad about that. So, the energy supply manager was on vacation. Now, before she went on vacation, me and her had a talk about no compromise. And she told me that she wanted me to take a leadership position in safety and with training people and use my knowledge and expertise. So I was waiting for her to come back to tell her the things that were going on around there. And the day she came back, I didn't even know that she was there. So the plant manager, he comes into the control room and says, "Can I speak to you?" I sure. So we went back to his office, or somebody's office, and the energy supply manager was there, the operations manager was there, and the plant manager. And they said, "We're gonna let you go. We just don't feel like you're a good fit." And I never got a chance to talk with the energy supply manager. She didn't ask me any questions. She didn't do any investigation. She didn't give me a chance at all. She just rushed me out the door. So I have a whole notes here that I would like to give y'all, but I don't because of time and because I don't want to use people's names on TV.
And that's fine. You can give it to the clerk, but I do want to remind you, we don't handle, we can listen to your concerns, obviously, because you're a citizen, you're an employee, but we don't handle employees day to day. It's under the general manager. He's our only employee. But you're always allowed to talk to this board if you have a concern of safety or you feel you've been mistreated. But there's also avenues throughout the city that you can take your grievances to. We do have that in place.
But there is a lot of unsafe conditions at the plant, and I told her I wasn't gonna operate the plant.
And if you do have concerns, you can give it to the clerk and then it won't be spoken on TV. We do appreciate your time, ma'am. Thank you so much, ma'am. Okay, seeing no other citizens at this point, next item, please.
Mr. Chair, the next item is the approval of the consent agenda, and there is one item on consent.
Okay, just as a reminder to the general public, whenever we make a motion, you have the right to speak to that motion. This will start off here. If it's an informational item, there is nothing, we're not making motions and there's nothing to speak to at that point. So I am looking for a motion on the consent agenda.
Motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Anybody want to speak to the motion on the floor? Seeing nobody at this time, all in favor, say aye. Aye. Motion passes. Next item, please.
Mr. Chair, the next item is the adoption of the agenda.
Mr. Chair,
Yes, sir.
I'd like to make some changes to the agenda. I'd like to remove item number 4. And I would like to add GRU-specific attorney, another item that is a recent GRU rate increase put in place by the City Commission, another item that is the general fund transfer or what has been repackaged as the government services contribution, and last but not least, Tony Cunningham's employment.
Okay, you're probably gonna have to break those down. I don't think, unless we have a second on the whole package. I would have to also ask the attorney, if something is not advertised, can we take action on it tonight?
Is that on?
Yeah, a little gainy.
Let me know if you can't hear me.
We can hear you, sir.
The meeting is noticed, properly noticed and advertised. Specific items on the agenda are not going to be required to be published ahead of time.
Perfect. Okay.
That being said, if it is something that is consequential and something that you feel is going to require a lot of input or deserve a lot of input, it is a best practice to have the individual items placed on an agenda such that members of the public can participate in advance and members of the board can as well. But I think you can proceed despite that.
Okay, a little less gain on his microphone.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to expand a little bit. What I'm requesting is a very unique presentation where I'm not going to be sitting here. I want to stand over there because I want to have a sunshine conversation with my board about the last 30 days of hundreds of hours and what I found.
Okay.
Dealing with these specific topics. And there is one more I'd like to add that I think to
Yes,
be
sir.
fair, and this isn't an item, I think it's a request, is I did meet yesterday with Mr. Hutchinson, with his group, to listen to some of their concerns. And frankly, To be honest, I wasn't expecting to actually like them.
They're nice people.
They truly are. So I reached out to the city attorney to ask if Mr. Hutchinson can have, or Hutch could have 5 minutes to present to everybody what the legal issues are. And frankly, I know it's extremely unorthodox, but this entire process is unnatural. So I want people who are opposing to have a voice. Now understand, we are in a plaintiff-defendant relationship at this exact moment in time. It is odd to allow the people suing you an opportunity to stand in front of you and talk. But I'm okay with it if you guys are. So I don't want that to get packaged in the attorney, the increase, the general fund, or Cunningham. I want that to be separate, but the end result is that I'm gonna ask that grouping.
Okay, so why don't you make a motion and let's see if we have a second first. As far as giving someone extraordinary outside the window of time, if we do it for one, we gotta do it for all.
Are there any people suing us that wanna have
Well,
5 minutes to talk to us?
I wouldn't necessarily say suing us, but,
That's why I'm giving them the time.
okay, it'll be the board's decision at that point.
I-
So go ahead and make your motion
So
and
the-
then we'll see if it has a second.
The first motion I would like to throw up there is, can we give Hutch or his group, or a mixture of all that, 5 minutes to present to everyone involved the legal issues?
I'll make a comment about that. I mean, they have their legal issues. Those issues are gonna be decided by a court of law. And we have absolutely no say in the response to those issues. So I'm not sure that this is the proper forum for that. I think he can speak to any number of issues that come before us, but the legal battle that they're involved in, I'm not sure this is the right forum to talk about that.
And as you well know, as the chair, I don't make motions nor second
Understood.
motion.
So I
Okay.
think it's fair. I tried. I
So
did what I could.
Died on lack of second.
Now, let me readdress, once again, what I'm asking for you guys to do is to allow me to present what I found in regard to the GRU-specific attorney, and we're talking facts. Recent GRU rate increase, general fund transfer, the repackaging rate increase, and Tony Cunningham's employment. Now, what I'm gonna do is get up and do what they call a cluster motion, which is every single one of these is tied together. Now, to go to our illustrious attorney's comments and some people out here, is that I tried to get some of the things put on, and it's actually in the speech that I wrote. No one presented me the speech. It's actually in it, and I don't want to ruin the speech. But the end result is that I did in fact ask for these items to be put on, and they're not here. So I am taking control as an individual on this board to say, hey, guys, we need to discuss this. We're not up here as puppets. We need to have a hard conversation today, right now, about these things. Plain and simple. And if you guys can't support me on that, I gotta have a different conversation at the end of this meeting.
So is that a motion? I'm
My
trying to-
motion is this.
And I'm not sure why I think you can make your statement from here. I think if, once you leave this, you
Understood.
are not voting at that point.
It's unnatural for me to sit
I know.
here.
Well,
and
I
You
know.
know,
I
I'm
gotcha.
an animated, how many of you guys know I'm animated?
I know.
Okay,
But
great.
so let's go ahead and make a motion and we'll see if we get a
My
second.
motion is that we add to the agenda, GRU-specific attorney topic. The recent GRU increase placed by the city commission days before we took possession, or whatever you want to call it. The general fund transfer, or what has been repackaged as a government services contribution, and Tony Cunningham's employment. Anybody?
So James, as I understand it, one of the agenda items at the end is a list of things that we would like to follow up on and things that we would like to sort of educate ourselves more on and bring in front of the authority. And I too have a list of things that I'm going to ask to sort of add to future items. and some of them actually align with what you've got there. And so that was the mechanism that I was going to use, was in this agenda item, was to say, I would like to talk about our relationship with our attorney-client privilege and how that's going to, so that was the approach that I was going to take.
I understood. But have you, in any form or fashion, asked Mr. Cunningham to put items on the agenda?
I have not.
I have. And they're not on here. So the end result is that I agree that this thing says that we have the ability to talk about it next month. And then we can punt the issues to the next month, and then the next month, and then this man is done, and we get to start all over again with a new person. Do you guys want us to punt this down the road? You're a private equity CEO of a hospital. No disrespect. You work off numbers. Would you allow the stuff that's happening to us to go on? We need to discuss it today. We do. We have to have the hard conversations because the governor trusts us enough to call our names and to get up here. I'm not here for my looks. I'm not here for anything else other than to try to fix issues. I've met with hundreds of people, hundreds, some that don't even like me, to listen to what they say. And if we can't have this discussion, why the hell are we here? I'm serious on this. You're a United States Marine. Do you put stuff up tomorrow or do you do it today?
You know, I agree with the sense of urgency. And it concerns me that we'll have to wait another month to get to some of these issues. I don't know that we can do justice to a lot of those issues tonight, but I agree with several of them. I might disagree with the issue specifically of Tony at this meeting because we've not, you know, you've had some interaction with him that you're dissatisfied with. I've not had that dissatisfaction yet. However, I think we need to give him a chance to demonstrate that he's willing to play ball.
I think we need to stick with the motion or repackage the motion and move on because we're into full discussion here at this point.
We did have.
Just so you know, at the end, like we said, there is going to be some other things. One of the things the CEO and I were talking about is doing a workshop in about 2 weeks. That would be informational only, so we could talk about these, you know, and that's what we're, so, and I agree. James, you had 3 items that were asked to be put on the agenda, if I'm not mistaken. Tony, is that correct? Tony brought those to my attention. He and I set the agenda. He felt that one of them was going to be handled, and we were going to ask that if we could handle the other 2, and we come up with a workshop idea.
So here's, let me clarify.
Yes, sir.
What I'm asking to do is to present the information that I found in regard to these topics. At the end of that, I will ask for a motion that then says we need to do something about it. So what I'm asking is an information-based piece so that you guys can understand what I've found over the last 30 days. And if you guys want to carve it up and say, well, we don't want to talk about the GRU specific attorney, whatever. But the end result is that what I'm asking is you guys, as business leaders in this community, let me talk about what I found in regard to these topics, because at the end of my speech, I have a motion that you guys can then turn down once you hear the facts. I'm not upset with Tony about the fact that I've asked him to put items on the agenda. That's not what I'm bringing up here. It's not. I'm bringing up something completely different.
So either we need a second or a repackage of the motion, and then if not, we're going to go ahead with the adoption of the agenda.
I'm asking for support on this, guys, and if you can't support me, then why are we here? I'm not asking for anything other than present facts, not opinions, facts in regard to an attorney, a rate increase, the general fund transfer, and Tony Cunningham's employee. And for the record, I'm not going to ask for his damn termination, if anyone's concerned about that. So let's be decent business people and give me a shot as a CEO of a company to have a conversation with some other CEOs. That's all I'm asking.
We have a motion on the floor. Do we have a second? We do not have a second.
Are you guys serious? Seriously, this is the way that you want to solve the problems for the thousands of people in Gainesville. This is what you guys want to do.
James, what I want to do is I want to work through this methodically. There's some urgent issues in front of the authority right now, and I appreciate the research that you've done, but I feel like I agree with a day of sort of getting ourselves educated, and so I really feel like we need to play out the process a little bit.
And you can present this at the workshok, right?
We just can't take action at a workshop, just.
But we're gonna
But you
continue
can
this
present.
conversation because if, the end result, guys, is that what you just did is punt this down the road another 30 days because of you guys. Let me ask, how many hours did you put into this? How many hours did you guys put into this? I'm not
Actually,
trying to
I can
play.
tell you, I put a lot of
I'm not
hours into
talking
this.
to you, Craig. The reason, I'm asking you guys genuinely, how
But-
many hours did you put into this?
But I do need to say that we have a motion, we have lack of second. Do we have a motion to adopt the agenda? I need to, and I apologize, I need to move on if we don't have a second. And if we don't get a motion and a second on adopting the agenda, our meeting's pretty much frozen.
I'll make a
at that
motion
point.
to adopt the agenda.
I have a motion.
And I'll second it.
I have a motion and a second. Any discussion on the motion? Please step forward.
I would say that I liked what Mr. Coates is doing, but member comment on the agenda would be a place for him to share.
And you're 1,000% right again. He can then have the floor 100%. So I apologize. He does bring up a good point on that, okay? That is an area. Anybody else have any comments on the motion on the floor? Seeing none. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed?
Did we discuss number 4? Are you guys still gonna discuss that? As the agenda as it is?
The agenda was proposed as stated.
All right, I see where this is going. Thank you, Craig Carter. I mean, Mr. Chair, sorry, not trying to be attitudey toward you, but just understand that I'm a very passionate individual. And what happened today was,
Well, and like I presented, if someone wanted to
Understood.
repackage,
I got it.
it could have been repackaged. Okay, do we have Matt, did you get the votes?
Yes, Mr. Chair.
Okay, just want to make sure we're going forward. Okay, do I have a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of the last meeting.
I'll second.
So we have a motion and a second on the floor. Anybody want to discuss the motion on the floor? Seeing none, all in favor say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none. Mr. CEO, General Manager.
Yes, thanks, Mr. Chair. I just want to say a few quick remarks to the board. As you all are well aware, you've gone through some orientation, you've gotten to meet some of the staff and the employees at GRU. And the utility, GRU is really the people that work here. And so every year we go through a process where we nominate and select some employee awards. And so I just wanted to spend a few minutes tonight going through and recognizing some of those employees and those awards that we recognize. So Robin, if you can go to the first one. So we have several categories. The first category is customer service, and here we're recognizing Darcy Roseman. So she works out at Deer Haven, and really she's being recognized. When we talk about customer service is both internal and external. So it's between departments or with employees within GRU, or it could be external with customers of GRU. And so she was just recognized for having an immense positive impact on morale, organizing Deer Haven and the employees there, and then routinely commented on by visitors and customers of just her kindness and warmness to everybody. And so she was recognized for that. The next one is Laura Voidel. So Laura Voidel is a business system administrative coordinator in our energy delivery department. And again, she was recognized as performing at a very high level within the department and really keeping the department going. It's actually our largest single department within Gainesville Regional Utilities. And she is just a primary kind of mover and expediter of getting work done throughout that department. The next category was just for general excellence. And we want to recognize Deer Haven Renewable Fuel Yard. So all of you were able to visit Deer Haven Renewable site, and you noticed all of the wood that is there and the chips that are made and how they're moved around to be used for solid fuel to make energy. Well, almost over an 11-month period, the auto reclaimer, which you all saw that had a bearing that went bad and we had to replace, while that was not functioning, we had a group of employees, the ones you see on the screen, that worked tirelessly throughout that 11 months to do everything manually. And the auto reclaimer was not being used. And so they were working extended shifts, working weekends, to do that. And so these individuals really took that seriously, stepped up, canceled vacations, worked times that they were away from their family in order to keep the plant operational and running. And that was during a time when natural gas prices were very high, and the Deerhaven Renewable, the price of that power was the lowest price of power. And so we wanted to run that plant as much as we could run that plant. And these individuals made that possible to keep costs lower for our customers. The next one is a maintenance team at one of our power facilities. So this maintenance team is recognized for helping, coordinating, and successfully completing 5 major outages and some unplanned outages. So at power plants, taking a plant into outage is a time for the staff to look at all the parts and pieces, see how they're functioning, see what things need to be improved or changed. And this team did 5 of those major outages, which is a significant amount in a short period of time. And so we wanted to recognize this team as well for that work that they did. The next one, we have several people here. So Shadan and would you all like to come up and be recognized for a second? So the enterprise data team, Shadan, Abiyah, and Jarnell. Jarnell's not here, Rick is. Sorry, Rick. But we wanted to recognize them. They're on the enterprise data team. They spent many evenings and nights upgrading our system. So all of us are used to using different systems, and we know we don't want to do patches and upgrades in the middle of the workday. And so the people that do that often have to do those after hours and in times when the rest of us are not at work. And so they've spent a lot of time doing that. They've also just continually are acquiring new skills so that our staff can most efficiently and effectively operate and have essential utilities for our customers. So they're kind of the back end folks that don't typically get recognized to get the utilities to our customers on a reliable basis. So thank you all for coming and for doing a great job this year. Really appreciate it. Thank you. And then one of our control room operators, Rick Santos, you see here on the left. He's one of our control room operators. He was instrumental in helping operators transition to their new roles. So one of the things at GRU, we've had some of these discussions, is we have a lot of new employees. There's been a lot of turnover and retirement and new employees coming in. Rick has been instrumental in really training a lot of those new employees, getting them on board and getting them up to speed to be efficient very quickly. And so we wanted to recognize him for that, as well as he was the lead in some safety improvements that we're doing, lockout, tagout, some other things that we've seen at the plant. He took the lead in updating those procedures and doing that as well. And then 2 more in the category of innovation. Oh, 1 more customer support service. So Hope Swindler, you go to Hope. There you go. Hope Swindler on the right here. Carmen Burse is her supervisor. She's in our energy and business services area, and Hope is a staff specialist there. So she's a person that everybody comes to get their jobs done, get materials, get things in place. She's newer in the area, and she has just been stepped up and recognized as someone that helps facilitate and get work done in a very efficient manner. The next section is innovation. So in the category of innovation, we have at the Kelly plant, we had a team of people. So a power plant, Kelly particularly, is usually a low-cost plant, which means it's running all the time. You're not bringing it down very much. And so when you bring in new operators, they need to learn how to bring the plant down and bring the plant back up. And so what many plants have and what this team did was set up a simulator. So they set up a simulator for the plant so that operators can get on there and simulate shutdowns and startups. They can simulate problems that occur. You can bring in a fake problem and then they've got to respond to it as an operator. So this team really set up that simulator so that you could do a significant amount of training for new employees, but also for employees that have even been there for a while and haven't been doing as many startups or things of that nature. And then finally, I'm going to switch to leadership. So on the leadership side, 2 people. We have a plant-based maintenance leader, Ross Rogers, on the left in this picture. He's really improved the cohesiveness of the unit. So again, as I was talking about turnover, we've had a lot of people move into different roles and different jobs. So he's been able to come into a job and really improve the cohesiveness, increase cross-training between teams and between activities, and again, be a leader of those 5 outages I referenced earlier. And then lastly, Cody Thompson. Cody Thompson's on the right with Josh King, his supervisor, on the left. I think some of you met both of them at DHR as you did your individual tours. Cody has just done a really good job as one of those newer operators, just getting up to speed, and what he's recognized for really being beyond his years and experience and knowledge with his time here. So sorry, I wanted to go through those. I went through those kind of fast, but I wanted to recognize, one, all of our employees work so hard and diligently, and it's behind the scenes. Nobody knows that it's happening, but the result is reliable electric service, water, wastewater, natural gas, and telecommunications. So all of our employees do a tremendous amount of work to make sure that's reliable. These folks really stood out, and their peers and their supervisors really recognized them this year, and so I wanted to just let you see them and recognize them as well. So that's it.
Thank you very much. Next item.
Mr. Chair, the next item is business discussion items, the first of which is item number 2023-1061, presentation for Gainesville Regional Utilities Authority regarding the interlocal agreement between Alachua County and the City of Gainesville for the acquisition of the Trunk Video System with the recommendation that the GRU Authority authorize the CEO GM to move forward with finalizing the purchase and sale agreement of the public safety radio system to Alachua County.
Point of clarification, if I'm not mistaken, Mr. General Manager, we're authorizing you to negotiate, but not to sell. You're going to bring that back to the board.
Correct, you're authorizing
Okay.
us to move
I just want
forward.
everybody to understand, that's the statement I made earlier, and I want to make sure we're sticking to that.
Yeah, we're gonna bring forward, from here, we're hoping to move toward a final sale agreement that we will.
Right, then we'll be back to the boards. Okay.
And Mr. Chair, I'll do a quick introduction. So we have been working productively with the county for some time. This is one of those items of board comes on and we're hitting the ground running. We really want to keep this moving forward because there's been a significant amount of work over even really the last couple of years. Lewis Walton is our telecommunications officer. He is here. He's going to give a presentation of sort of where we are and a few things left that we need to take care of to continue to move forward. I want to also recognize Chief Theus. Chief Theus is here. He's with the county, so that we are, again, working together with them to try to bring this to completion. So with that, Lewis Walton.
Thank you. Chair, members, nice to see you today. Happy to take this opportunity to update you on GRUCOM and Alachua County's progress to execute a sale of the public radio system, or TRS, to the county. You'll hear a few acronyms. I'll try and get those defined here in just a minute. First of all, GRU constructed the public safety radio system in 1999 and has operated the system for more than 20 years. We're coming up on 25 years. For the most recent history, in 2022, the Alachua County Commission and the City of Gainesville agreed to enter discussions to establish acceptable terms to sell the existing public safety radio system from GRUCOM to Alachua County. On June 22nd of 23, the City of Gainesville approved the interlocal agreement between Alachua County and the City of Gainesville for the acquisition of the trunk radio system. We have those things with our documents. A preliminary step to negotiating a purchase-sale agreement to execute the transaction. On September 26th, recently, on September 28th, the Alachua County Commission and the City of Gainesville respectfully agreed to extend the interlocal until December 31st, 2023, to provide staff additional time to finalize the sales agreement and present the issue to this board. Timing is important to move an agreement to completion, as the Alachua County Commission did add that if an agreement can't be reached within the extension, then county staff would move forward with building a county-owned system. So those are important notes to note. So, as we go through this, to bring you up to speed, I'm going to go through a quick agenda. First, we'll talk about the history of the system and events that have brought us here today. The legal framework for being able to sell the system. Then discuss some reasons staff considered the sales to the county to be possible, and go over some strategic considerations that make selling the system beneficial. I'll also go over fundamentals of the negotiated terms that they're designing, the agreement around. Then the benefits and fiscal impact of those fundamental terms. And finally, offer you a staff recommendation for your consideration today.
Okay, Louis, just real quick, just want to remind the board, if you have any questions, if you want to ask them as we go forward, just, be recognized and go ask the question. Might be the best way, right?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So first, what is the public safety radio system? It's an 800 megahertz licensed only fiber, only for public safety and first responder government agencies. It's a collection of antennas on cell towers connected to servers and connected to routers that enable 800 megahertz communications to be received and sent, and it's not available for commercial use. That's a fundamental setup of the system. And then there are always the acronyms. Told you we'd get to those. GRUCOM, I think you know after our orientations, is the telecommunications provider. Trunk Radio System, or TRS, is a public safety radio system used throughout Alachua County. The RMB you will hear here is the Radio Management Board. And P25 is a digital platform for public safety that came on a few years ago. It's now the standard across the nation for communications. And then there's the CCC, the Combined Communications Center. Now, that's a partnership where the Combined Communications Center takes in all the 911 calls and distributes them to through the system to their determined locations. The city involved. Okay. Here's some of the history. The system has a long history going back to 1999 when GRUCOM built the system. Subsequently, the county and other users wanted to use the radio system, and a 20-year agreement was developed with users, with the user group called the Radio Management Board. So that was established once those other members came on. Around 2015, the RMB wanted to upgrade the system to the new national standard of P25, but unfortunately, there was not enough cash flow to support the upgrade. So the city and county decided to fund two studies looking first at the immediate needs of the existing system, and then the future user needs and wants of the system overall. So the studies were conducted, recommendations were provided, and GRUCOM took action to answer the immediate needs from the first study. Here you can see the overall recommendations from the studies, and one that I'll make notable that certainly stuck out to me. There we go, on the right one. Is that what was projected was a noted $7 million loss for GRUCOM in providing the service through 2021. That was something that we knew that we had to address. GRUCOM, however, proactively funded the upgrade in the interest of public safety. It's about $4.6 million, with the express support of both commissions and to the standard of the first study. When we assembled the major users and worked towards an agreement that would support the upgraded system and allow the future needs of the public safety system users, then beyond the upgrade of the system, there were other users such as further expansion. There were other issues such as further expansion of the system to improve coverage in more rural areas of the community. Discussions continued through the expiration of the initial agreement, and when there was very little resolution to address all the users' issues, there were conflicting issues. GRUCOM proposed a solution to keep discussions moving towards a new agreement. Unfortunately, there was no other alternative provided. Unfortunately, without resolving the potential for expansion, the city and county still did not have a basis for a new long-term agreement. GRUCOM needed to be made whole on its recent upgrade investments, so we implemented terms and conditions to be compensated at cost for implementing the upgrade based on areas of agreement we had reached so far. As mentioned, there were some areas of difference, so we entered into a process to resolve those issues, primarily how the bills were calculated and what mechanisms there were for expanding the system. We got through a couple of years with some modification, but some core differences still existed. Eventually, the county asked about purchasing the system, and the city was open to discussion. The can see some of the milestones here on that slide. Before we can move forward, we needed to address the legality of doing so. Gainesville has an ordinance that restricts the selling of certain assets that would materially impact the capacity of GRUCOM to distribute telecommunication services without a referendum. Although this is a radio system to communicate and is not part of GRUCOM's core telecommunications system, but it does rely on our telecommunications system to operate effectively. The short answer here is that after legal review, the public safety radio system does not reduce our ability to provide telecommunications services outside of this non-commercial system. As a matter of fact, it takes away from our core competencies in telecommunications. So that gets us here. There were some good reasons to consider a sale to the county. Our initial arrangement really was a square peg in a round hole that got in the way of comprehensive planning and funding for the system. A county-owned model is really a standard across the state and even there are state-run agencies that do this. We were definitely the exception and the outlier. Public safety communication is a fundamental element to all agencies' ability to respond and effectively protect our community. So a comprehensive approach to communications is a high priority for all of those communities, and we recognize that. There was a precedence for the city and county to work together on this priority because the CCC had already been operational for a few years, and that was a partnership that was working. So people were comfortable with moving both on the county side and on the city side with moving forward there. And then there was uncertainty of having no agreement in place and no way to plan for emerging needs as time went on. Those conflicting priorities were not managed or governed by anyone except effectively the provider. And so we were in a place that we were kind of really above our heads and without resources to be able to address things that were really widely community-based. All of these reasons supported the idea that we really needed a good long-term plan to support public safety communications in the community. In addition, there were a number of other reasons that the sale could fit in some longer-term goals for GRU and achieve GRUCOM's financial goals, while providing further benefit to the core telecommunications system business. There were some advantages here where we could gain a significant payment against debt. We could support continued performance of the system for all users. We could stabilize city expenses and potentially lower long-term costs. There's GRU expenses as well. Cash from the sale goes directly against GRUCOM's debt and is amortized over time, so it's not a one-shot deal. And importantly, it allows GRUCOM to focus on our core telecommunications products and services. I think that most of us have spoke about that through our orientations, where our core competencies really lie. So we began initial negotiations as framework for an agreement. Here you see the shared perspective resulted in an approach to negotiations that both sides believe provides mutual benefit. First, we agreed on a price for the system, $8 million, and also addressed stability moving forward for GRU and Gainesville's public safety agency's cost, moving into the next 5 years after the sale is consummated. These costs were based on the most recent historical billing for both GRU and the agencies. It keeps GRU's what we had recently paid flat at $164,000, and for the city and their public safety agencies, for the first 2 years it's remained flat, and then there was a discount that moved into the tier 3, 4, and 5. So that was an additional reduction of costs. So what do these terms provide for GRU, GRUCOM, and stability going forward? These proposed benefits are an $8 million payment to GRUCOM, debt relief over time, debt relief over time. Reduced GRUCOM operating expenses by approximately $1.4 million annually. Retained revenue from tower leasing and data services provided to the system, which is around a few $100,000 a year. Reduce the cost of service to the city by approximately $500,000 a year during the 5-year term. And we all believe, based on what the county's told us, that they may be able to operate at a lower cost based on agreements available to them, and we could enjoy some lower costs going forward. It also supports continued performance of the system for public safety across the county. And how do these terms fit into the fiscal impact of this decision? GRU and county staff have been working to bring together a purchase sale agreement to execute the transaction. We've been diligently working. The chief and I have spent a lot of time together lately. We have overcome a number of issues over hours and hours of work, and several drafts going back and forth, trying to tweak out and understand exactly what it is that each of us needs and how we can accommodate that inside of the frameworks that we're both going to need. And would like to continue our work on the few remaining issues. It's been a cooperative process. It's been a straightforward process. And certainly, I think we want to continue that. To me, that is a good process. When you can be honest, straightforward. Things work out some for you. Things don't work out some for the other guy, and that's where you end up. So as I mentioned at the outset, the extension to December 31st has brought us to this day. Our respective staffs have been working diligently to finalize the agreement, and we are here to seek your approval to continue those discussions before bringing the final agreement forward to you. So with that background, staff proposes the following recommendation for your consideration. The GRUA, the authority, authorize the general manager to move forward with finalizing the purchase and sale agreement of the public safety radio system to Alachua County. And I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
One, I'm assuming the county's here. Obviously, you know, we're in a unique position. I'm assuming if we are negotiating in good faith and we get close to December 31st, I'm assuming there's no hand grenades. We'll be able to continue negotiating. For me personally, I like all the cards on the table, the whole $11 million. That's how much we owe on the trunk radio, right?
Around 10.4.
Okay. We're gonna sell it for 8, we're gonna take a loss, and believe it or not, it's a good business decision, because if they build their own, we lose our majority customer. It sounds hard to swallow, but I think this entire board wants the good, the bad, and the ugly out there in every conversation. So if we're gonna be taking a loss, let's tell the people why we're taking a loss. And we've had that discussion, and that's important to me, and I'm assuming the other board members too. We are where we're at. But it's, the numbers I've seen, I like the numbers, but I'm assuming the county won't, if there's some legal challenges and or slower movement because of it, I'm sure December 31st, we can move on a little bit, I'm assuming. Any other questions or comments? So the only thing we're looking for now is a motion to proceed forward, not to sell the radio, to continue, the general manager to continue the conversation with the county. That's the only motion we're looking for, and then everybody can speak to the motion once one's made. So I am looking for a motion at this point.
I so move.
We have a motion on the table?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any discussion by citizens at this point?
Mr. Chair, Jim Conish, I don't have an opinion on what you should do, but I want to read to you from Judge Dempsey's opinion about this matter. Plaintiff, city attorney, alleges that challenge law 1645 impairs the contract for the sale of the trunk radio system to Alachua County and contracts related to the bond, specifically the bond resolution. And they reached a memorandum of understanding on the very day 1645 took effect. They didn't file it to the following Monday in the clerk's office. So the law took effect before the memorandum of understanding. That was just another frivolous claim brought forward at astronomical expense. 250 came from GRU's coffers. GRU is bleeding on this thing on top of the general services contribution. They're hemorrhaging all over the place. And that's why on that chart, we have the highest electric rates for residential service in the state of Florida as of August 23, 12-month average, 1,000 kilowatt hours. So let's be honest about it, but this is just one of many things. like free outdoor lighting for the county, 1.1 million a year. So this hemorrhaging, you'll see it over and over and over again.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, please.
I'm Robert Hutchinson, and while I was on the county commission, some of those decisions were in front of me, and I supported the Trump radio system transfer when I was first proposed. The problem that we have is that the city charter says the commission may not in any manner dispose or agree to dispose of the following city utility systems. It includes the telecommunications system unless the city first adopts an ordinance approving the disposition and submits the ordinance to referendum vote, and such referendum is approved by the majority vote of the people. And it says this commission may not in any manner dispose of any part of the system. And so this is clearly part of the system. I haven't heard anybody say it's a de minimis part of the system. It's an important part. We're talking $11 million or whatever. And our concern is that we don't think you or we have an adequate legal opinion that the next time somebody comes along and says, hey, we want to buy just all the transformers on the poles. Would that be a de minimis part of the electric system? We want to buy just the lift stations and operate those as a contractor. People can part out a utility system. It's done all the time. And this is parting out a utility system. It's not allowed in the charter. This thing would pass if it was presented in notice. And as I told Craig, I'll buy the first 100-yard sign saying adopt this thing. But I don't think you guys, at the end of the day, can approve of this purchase without violating the charter that you guys swore an oath to. And I've got this statement, which I sent to all of you. I've given it to the clerk. And
Appreciate it.
it'd be useful to put it in minutes because I think it prices our charge a little better than has the text.
And sir, just to your point, that's why I sort of talked to the county real quick unofficially that, as we work through some of these things, I'm sure the county's not going to kill us on the, let's get through it. And it is the best thing, whatever we wind up doing. So we know where, we believe and we know where it's got to go. So we're willing to take a little time to get there, it seems like.
Well, and I think that you could do a lot of this stuff anyway in the assumption that it's going to pass in November.
That's what we're doing now. So again, we'll go forward and see what we got. Thank you, sir. Next speaker, please.
So really with the bill now being law, but needing to know if there needs to be a referendum, because we don't want the city saying, see, we told you that they were gonna sell it. We also need to know legally, and maybe the attorney, city attorney can answer that. Does there need to be a referendum now? That's it.
Okay, fair enough. Thank you very much. Do we have another speaker? The county's coming up with an extension. I love this. I like the way you think.
That's exactly what I'm here for. Harold Diaz, Los Spanish Fire Rescue, representing the county in this discussion. Chair Carter and board members, really, it's up to our commission whether or not an extension is granted. It's not a staff level decision that we have the authority to make. I will tell you that we have been through some extensions in negotiating this deal, and that it's been very public. We have some commissioners that are sort of at the end of their rope in this negotiations. And so time is very important to us. Time is of the essence. But I cannot commit to you as to an extension. It would be a policy decision by the board.
I appreciate that, sir, and I know that, and I was just sort of hoping that they're watching and they'll make the phone call. But thank you, sir. Do we have any other speakers to this motion on the floor? Seeing none, back to the board. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Any opposed?
Mr. Chair, the next item is 2023-1062 bond validation process with the recommendation that the authority approve GRU to move forward with the bond validation process.
So, Mr. Chair, we have Mike Weiner from Holland and Knight. He is our bond counsel. He is going to be giving a presentation tonight. Our CFO, Claudia Raznik, will be here as well if there are questions. But with that, I'm just going to turn it over to Mike and let him.
Prior to Mr. Weiner, I just want to disclose that I have sat down and met with bond counsel, with the CEO, general manager, and our CFO to discuss the need for bond counsel. So I just want everybody to know that I've already had this meeting. We spent quite a bit of time together, and he was explaining to me the need for it. So no secrets. Go ahead, sir.
Great, thank you. Well, thanks for the opportunity to be in front of everyone. Appreciate all the excitement. My kids thought being a bond lawyer was boring. I should have brought them here tonight. So I'm not sure how I advanced this slide. Is this? So easy, even a bond lawyer can do it. Needed help. Okay, so starting out, again, my name is Mike Weiner. I'm a partner with Holland and Knight. My practice is entirely public finance, so I represent cities and governments throughout the state doing this type of work. What is bond counsel? So bond counsel's role is to render the bond counsel opinion. We're engaged to provide an objective legal opinion with respect to the validity of the bond, mainly focusing on the tax-exempt status of the bonds. Particularly the tax exemption that's given by local governments throughout the United States on their bonds, which reduces the interest rate compared to a corporate commercial borrowing. The opinion is an objective judgment rather than an advocacy. We work with GRU, with cities and local governments to make sure that all the tax laws are complied with, preparing all of the documents, and at the end we render an opinion. The opinion is an objective opinion separate from opinions given by and representations, and that's a demand of the market. So the market, for a while, this goes back to the railroad days where cities and counties were selling lots of bonds, and then all of a sudden the cities and counties said, oh, wait a minute, we're not responsible for those bonds. It's what's called ultra vires, it's outside of our authority. Bondholders got burned. They said, well, we want somebody else, somebody objective to be given those opinions. That's why you have the bond counsel role in the tax exempt world, but you don't see that in the corporate world. So we're a little bit different in how we operate. I'm going to walk through a presentation prepared by staff going through what the bond validation is, why we are recommending that this is done. So first off, the point of the validation is, as its name states, it's to validate, to get a court judgment. We're not looking to implement.
We got you now.
So it is for risk mitigation. It allows us to give that objective bond counsel opinion that investors are demanding. House Bill 1645 became law, now codified under 2023-348 laws of Florida, establishing the Gainesville Regional Utilities Authority. The law allows for specifically Chapter 75 bond validations. This isn't unique. This is this is a process which we use throughout the state anytime that there's any questions. CDDs, community development districts, all of those are required by law to validate. So this isn't a new process, but it's something that we do. It gives the investors comfort because once a bond is validated, it can no longer be challenged. As part of the validation, we can include certain other parts in the validation that are instrumental in the process. And one of the things that we talked about doing is the ability to set fees and charges. At the end of the process, if successful, we'll have a judgment which will be precedent to any future litigation. So any acts that have been validated are what are called precedent, which means that if there's another case, the court will look to precedent in that jurisdiction as to setting their judgment, as in their decisions. What's unique about a bond validation is the expeditious hearing that we get and the process to skip the appeals court and go directly to the Supreme Court. Pass everything and go straight to jail. So GRU's counterparties, rating agencies, investors, and banking relationships have been supportive of this. They've encouraged it in many instances because they're looking for that certainty. There's certainly a lot going on, as you're all aware of. I don't need to discuss that. So, may have.
I think you were one ahead, Mike. Go back. There you go. Okay.
All right. So, assuming that we have authority to approve, to move forward with the bond validation, we'll start working on a timeline. The timeline's kind of fluid now because there's lots of things going on, right? All sorts of lawsuits that you're all well-versed in, federal, state lawsuits that apply to the bill but don't name Gainesville or GRU as a party to it. All of those are going to have to get factored in. I understand that there's some discussion about opening up the bill again. All of that needs to sort of, we need to have some sort of level playing field in order for us to prepare the pleadings in order to file the validation complaint. So that's all going to factor into the timeline because I know that's what everyone wants, right? Like, how long is that going to take? And some of this is just going to be a fluid process as we're sort of watching, learning, preparing documents, and getting ready for the moment that we think things are ready to file. Obviously, we'll be working with GRU staff. We'll be keeping you apprised of the progress. Everything that's said throughout the process, could potentially be used as part of the litigation. So we just need to keep that in mind. At the end of the presentation, there's a more detailed view of the process of a bond validation. I don't want to take everyone's time going through that now. So bond validation, pass or fail. So if the bond validation's unsuccessful, obviously that's going to have an impact on the rating agencies. That's going to have an impact on your creditors, your investors, all of your financial stakeholders. I can tell you, I do a lot of this work. I've never had so many people, when they speak to me, interested in what's going on with GRU. All the banks that I work with, they want to know what I see. And so people are really watching this. They're reading the news. The rating agencies are have their clipping services. They are paying attention to this for sure. So what happens if it fails? You're going to have increased costs, right? Potentially ratings downgrades. Ratings downgrades are one of the factors in some of the pricing on the existing debt. So if your ratings fall below certain levels, certain costs increase, whether it's on your liquidity or credit facilities, whether it's on your some of your bank loans. There's collateral posting requirements, which could get triggered on the swaps, depending on where the swap pricing is at that moment in time. Liquidity facilities GRU relies on in order to provide liquidity to investors on your existing bonds. We have several up for renewal. I think that's on the agenda. Having that liquidity there keeps rates low. Not having that liquidity there, their unwillingness to renew or new credit facilities step in could trigger what's called a term out, which would result in increased payments on those bonds at the level of tender or forced tender of those variable rate bonds. I know clearly, the most obvious one is going to affect your ability to issue new bonds and refinance bonds for lower costs. So GRU doesn't just issue debt for the purpose of funding new projects. It's also something that's done in order to reduce your interest costs. So even though interest rates have risen, it doesn't necessarily mean that you can't take advantage of lower rates because GRU borrows on a long-term curve. So let's say 30 years. As time goes by, you borrow on a shorter term, you're going to be able to borrow at a lower cost. So even in a lot of times where we see rates have increased, just because the difference is where you are in time compared to when you issue, you may be able to issue at a reduced rate. So being able to access that low cost of capital and savings is important to GRU. All right, so I think we covered some of these. So if it's successful, right, it's kind of the opposite. We'll be able to execute financial transactions, borrow money, lower cost, keep your investors. It's also going to provide some legal protections, right? We're gonna have that certainty. You'll have that certainty. It's also going to give, the rating agencies comfort that there's more stability within it, and that's what we're looking for, right? Operational stability, in the legal world, and it allows us to give our bond counsel opinion. Okay, you said give somebody else to advance myself. Okay. So what do we recommend? Obviously, we would suggest doing the bond validation. We think it's, when it's appropriate, filing that bond validation, we get the certainty that we need as bond counsel and the investors are looking for the rating agencies. So I'll pause and happy to address any questions.
Board? Okay, I'll go. Cost. So you and I discussed this and we said on the low side, 50,000. And you said as high as 200,000, depending on how many petitioners we may or may not have in the first round. Is that correct?
That's right. And we both agreed that 50,000 is for a simple validation that this would not be, right? So
Fair enough. But again, so going back, one of the things that I think this board, the legislators, the citizens, when we talk about what we're going to do, cost is a big factor, cause and effect. This, you know, as I talked to you, no disrespect, I said I wasn't sure of what was going on here. Why do we need it? Tell me why. Since then, I did talk to other people. I talked to one person that said they were doing bond validations for, I believe, 30 years. Tony was actually in the car with me. We were driving to Tallahassee to go meet with everybody there. He said in 30 years, he's only done 10 bond validations, and I was ready to give you an aha moment. And he said, yours will be the 11th. He said, because the complexity of the bill and the situation being so unique that he doesn't see, and Tony, please correct me if I'm wrong, he doesn't see us being able to get good bond issuance without that validation, especially with the opinion lawsuits. So, board, I am, you know, in favor of it, but obviously I can't make a motion or second, so I'm going to be looking to the board for a motion on this.
Okay, make a motion.
I'll second.
Okay, we have a motion on this and a second on the floor. Any citizens wish to comment to the motion that is made?
Can I just one thing, if you want to clarify.
Yes, sir.
When we spoke costs, right, we were discussing circuit court, right? So there's both circuit court, and then when it goes to appellate court, we said that would be, we won't know what happens in the Supreme Court until we get down to the.
Is there a new ceiling?
Well, I couldn't tell, and I was very clear with you, I thought, when we spoke. I mean, I don't know what we're getting into, right? So we're gonna be going into this, doing our best, right? And working with you as to the management of the cost. But until we know, right, we won't know until the way the validation works. And talking about the process a little bit, right? When you show up at the validation, that's who you know is going to be arguing against your case. So in this case, we have, you know, some indication of but bond validations are different than other litigation where everybody goes into it knowing what the facts are, right? Knowing what the issues are. We don't know that in a bond validation because every citizen has a right to show up and plead their case. And so for us to give an accurate answer as to what the estimates are, we won't have a very good idea until we start moving forward and we show up. So I'm just trying to be upfront.
No, and that's what we want. I don't want, you know, I was under the impression we were in the $50,000 to $200,000 range. I mean, you know, and I understand you don't have a crystal ball. And I appreciate you clarifying that because the last thing I want to do is say aha or surprise. But I don't see how we move forward without it. And obviously, if a group comes and contests it, that's well within their right. I mean, we have no control over that. So I appreciate you clarifying that. I was under the impression we had a ceiling or close to a ceiling. Anybody would like to speak to the motion, please do so.
What is the motion?
The motion on the floor is to do the recommendation, which would be to hire bond counsel, sir.
I have no
I
opinion,
apologize.
but I want to go to Judge Dempsey again. The city attorney argued that 1645 impairs the existing bond resolutions because there's a group of people that will destroy GRU to make sure this authority fails. That's what we're dealing with here. They're financial jihadists is what they are. And basically, I want to read this. In the existing bond documents, because reorganization of GRU governance has been discussed since 2015, in the existing bonds, there's a provision that puts everyone on notice that the legislature is examining the governance of GRU. Now, the Auditor General found that the debt is so complex, there's very few attorneys that will even touch it. And then, the Auditor General was very concerned about the fees being charged by this preeminent law firm, one of the top law firms in the country, if not the world. But they're like about the only ones that can deal with the morass that's been created. But this is a very, very complex issue. But your attorney went to Tallahassee with the Ackerman Law Firm and argued that 1645 offends the bond resolutions when it doesn't. I'm just giving you information. This is a really tough one. And this just shows you how dangerous the situation and how the litigation by these citizens is going to cost everyone a lot of money because they think they can send the legislature back to the drawing board. Judge Dempsey's words, not mine. They can't.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, please. If you need to do something, come do it.
Thank you. Robert Hutchinson with Gainesville Residents United. So we have not decided whether or not to directly intervene at all in the bond validation process. And I've provided you all kind of our situation. I'm happy to at any time brief you guys, your bond counsel, or anybody on what our understanding is of the calendar of the litigation. Right now, for instance, the federal litigation, which is the most comprehensive, we've been told that sometime in March we'll be in required court-ordered mediation. And after that, then there would be some more motions and hearings and so forth with a trial probably in the June timeframe. And then the judge can take however long judges want to take to issue a verdict. And so that's sort of the best case scenario we're looking at unless we move forward more quickly. That's why I will reiterate, and I have in the document I've given you, the best way forward for the utility authority is to get 1645 rewritten. And if you guys just take this hands-off attitude, it's up to the legislature, then you're telling the legislature, go ahead and let this thing collapse around you, because there are some who believe that the legislature's goal is to make the city of Gainesville fail. And so we're all playing that now because you guys won't talk to them about redoing 1645. They won't listen to us. They've already rejected one set of revisions we gave to them. So we think the best thing to do is mediate with you, the legislature, Joe Little, who's got a couple cases, and us, and for these four parties to redo 1645, and then for us to get Jennifer Bradley to understand that she's got to run this bill basically to save GRU. We could have this thing written by December, up there in Tallahassee by January. They could expedite it, governor could sign it, and then you wouldn't have any litigation on your books by February. And that is totally possible to do if you guys will pay attention to what's really in front of you now. And we've got bond counsel, by the way, now too. And they've explained to us the complexity of what's going on. And we know we're going to get blamed, as we just have, for causing rates to go up or debt to, become a problem. But the fact is, it's 1645 that's doing it. It is a really terrible piece of legal writing. We've got 200 pages of case law of all the reasons why it's bad law. We've got to fix it, and the people in the room are the ones who will have to do it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Would anybody else like to speak to the motion on the floor? Seeing none, back to the board. All in favor, say aye. Aye. Opposed? You're not voting?
Nope.
I think you have to. Then you have to vote?
Then I'm for it. I'm supporting Chair
Okay, I'm just trying to.
I'm a little passive aggressive, please understand that. I'll be
No,
a big
I've known
boy
you for a
later.
long time, we're good. But I just wanted to make sure that we weren't doing anything wrong.
I'm for it, aye.
Okay, so you have that? Okay, thank you very much.
Mr. Chair, the next item is 2023-1063, the renewal or replacement of liquidity facilities. And its recommendation that the authority accept notification that GRU is moving forward with renewal or replacement of liquidity facilities scheduled for May 2024.
So, Mr. Chair, Mark Benton has made his way to the podium. He is Director of Accounting and Finance for GRU. He will give a presentation about the liquidity facilities. We are not looking for action on this. This is just informational. It'll be something that'll be coming back to the board for action, but it'll just be informational. And then Mark's gonna actually stay up for the next agenda item, which is the budget calendar, which really lays out where we'll be presenting different parts of the budget throughout the next several months. And we will be looking for action for that, because once you approve that, we then start to establish actual dates on the calendar based on that approval. So with that, Mr. Benton.
So, Mr. Chair, GRU has a robust variable rate debt program. We currently have about $588 million of original issue variable rate debt outstanding. Of that $588 million, 4 series, making up about $172 million, are comprised of variable rate demand obligations and variable rate notes. These obligations have interest rates that reset daily. They can be presented at almost any time by the bondholders for payment. When they are presented, we remarket those bonds. We use the proceeds from that remarketing to pay the original bondholders. Each of these obligations has a supporting liquidity facility, and the purpose of the liquidity facility is in the event that there's a credit market disruption or a failed remarketing and GRU doesn't have the cash to pay those bondholders, the providers of those facilities step in and make that payment. It's not feasible to administer a variable rate debt program without these liquidity facilities, because investors aren't going to buy variable rate debt where they don't have that reassurance that they're going to be paid. It's difficult, if not impossible, to get a rating on a variable rate issue that doesn't have a supporting liquidity facility. So the point is that we have currently 3 facilities that are going to expire in May of 2024. They support our 2005C, 2006A, and 2012B bond issues. The principal on these issues is about $172 million, about $105 million. All 3 are provided by Barclays. Given the time that it takes to execute a replacement or renewal of these facilities, it's prudent for us to start that process now. There are a number of avenues. You just heard bond counsel talk about the complexity of the bond validation. There are a number of avenues that we'll pursue to carry out this replacement or renewal. We could do a traditional competitive process where we do an RFP, we solicit bids. We could negotiate a shorter term extension with the current provider. We could, if necessary, depending on how things unfold, redeem the underlying bonds. That requires us coming up with either cash or accessing a line of credit to make that payment. And there is in the current agreement a 5-year term out where we could agree with Barclays that the facility will stay in place for another 5 years, and we will amortize that $105 million payment over that time. At this point, we don't know which one of those alternatives is in our best interest. What staff is going to do is explore all 5 of those, and then we will bring back to you the proposal and the justification for it that we believe will bring about the best outcome for the utility. You've heard it mentioned a couple times here already tonight. Our debt program it's complicated, it's relatively complex, it's relatively large, and so you're going to be seeing staff come before you as appropriate for a number of different transactions. It'll cover anything from new money issues to refundings, refinancings, restructurings, and as we're talking about tonight, liquidity facility replacements. And the next item on the agenda is the budget calendar. We'll be talking to you briefly about the fact that as part of the budget process, you'll be hearing a discussion of our debt management program on a much deeper and broader scale. But what we're asking for tonight is simply for the authority to accept the notification that staff is going to be moving forward with that renewal and replacement of these liquidity facilities that expire in May of 2024. I'm happy to answer any questions.
From the board. Mark, I have a question. We've heard it 3 times now, I think. Our debt's complicated. Is that typical of a utility to have complicated debt, or is it the way we are accruing our debt and we're making it complicated, or is it a combination?
I suspect it's a combination. I would, Mr. Weiner might be able to give you a little more of an objective view of that, but I believe he would tell you that GRU's debt is probably among the most complicated that he's seen in a municipal utility. Part of that is because of some of the transactions that we've carried out and how we've dealt with the level of outstanding debt that they've generated, such as the DHR acquisition. It was an incredibly successful deal for us, but it also doubled our debt. The larger your portfolio gets, the broader the tools are you use to manage the costs associated with that. Because what we're looking at, we've got to manage it, we've got to monitor it, we've got to adjust it where possible. And so we've used a variety of tools to keep those debt costs as low as we possibly could, including, I think you heard Mike mention, we've got a number of swaps on the books, a number of derivatives. We've got variable rate debt, we've got fixed rate debt. And that's all to try to help us achieve the most efficient administration of that portfolio as we can.
So if we had less complicated debt, would it be cheaper? Question number one. And then you did mention Deer Haven Renewable. It was actually on the books for approximately $1.7 billion as a lease, and we reduced the debt by almost $1 billion by purchasing it, correct?
Well, when we brought DHR on, when we went through that debt program, the capital lease doubled our outstanding debt. Our outstanding debt back in 2013, prior to that transaction, was just under $1 billion. The capital lease we brought on the books on the balance sheet at about $1 billion. When we acquired DHR and took the lease off the books, we lowered our outstanding debt by about $250 million. We issued $675 million of bonds to get $750 million of proceeds, and took over $900 million of debt off the balance sheet at the same time.
And then my question, if our debt was less complicated, would it be cheaper?
Yeah, I was hoping you'd forgotten that you'd asked.
No, sir, I did not forget that. Complication sounds expensive to me.
I don't know that I can say, broadly that it would be cheaper if it were less complicated, because like I said, some of the more sophisticated and complex tools that we've brought on to help manage that have brought that cost down. The fact that we have a good deal of variable rate debt, we brought that variable rate debt on for a number of reasons. One of them is to manage the cost. Most of our variable rate debt is synthetically fixed. It's hedged. That $588 million I mentioned, about $428 million of that is hedged. And so basically we've brought those products on to keep the cost down. So I don't think I'd make a general statement that if the debt were less complex, that it would be cheaper, because we worked hard to bring that cost down.
Any other questions? And it is just an informational item at this point, board. Seeing none. Thank you so much, Mark. Next item, please.
Mark is gonna move on to the.
Mark loves the spotlight.
Yeah, I can't tell you. I live to speak in front of crowds. Let me tell you.
Mr. Chair, if I may.
Yes, ma'am.
Next item is item 2023-1064, the request for approval of FY 25 through 26 budget calendar, with the recommendation that the authority approve the FY 25 through 26 budget calendar.
Thank you, ma'am.
Yeah, let me start off by making a slight correction. That says 25-26 budget calendar. I think that's a holdover from the fact that we used to do two-year budgets. What we're really talking about today is the FY '25 budget. There's a synopsis of the calendar. Our practice has been over the last several years that we have identified separate sessions for significant portions of the budget, and that's what you see here today. We've broken it into, in January, we are planning anyway to have a session on cash, liquidity, and reserves and debt. In April, we'll talk about our customer sales and revenue forecast that comes out of our rates and forecasting group. And then in May, we'll get into the guts of the budget, our O&M and our capital piece, as well as talking about fuels. In June, the general manager will present the budget for your approval. And then as is required by the law, the authority will present that budget to the city commission no later than July 1st. And then the final act will be to establish the rates and budget. Right now, we've got them scheduled tentatively for your normal meeting dates in those months, the first Wednesday. So obviously, if you adopt this here tonight, it's flexible. We can change, we can adjust the topics, we can adjust the dates as is necessary, but we want to get these out there for your review. If it comes up that you have other topics that you want to discuss, obviously we'll put those on there. And so what we're asking for you to do at this point, maybe we're not asking for you to do.
I didn't see a recommendation on that.
Is to approve this calendar for the budget.
So we have a recommendation to approve this calendar as it's stated. Do we have a motion?
And excuse me for just a second. So the calendar goes from what time to what time?
Well, let's see, the first budget meeting that we would calendar here would be the first Wednesday in January. Those discussions will stretch through June, and then when you will present the approved budget to the city commission on July 1st. That's the one hard date that's in here. That is mandated by the law. And then actually we've got September up there as for establishing the rates and budget. That's kind of a holdover from the fact that when on the city side, that's when the two budget resolutions are read. But anytime after you present that budget to the city commission, this board can set the rates and budget for the following year.
And I'll just add, Mr. Chair, that's for fiscal year '25 budget, which starts October 1st of 2024 through September 30th of 2025. So this is the budget calendar to get us to the budget for next fiscal year.
I move to accept the budget calendar.
Second. We have a motion and a second. Any discussion by public?
Mr. Chair, Jim Conish. You swore to uphold our charter, and I'd like to read you a few sections that are very unambiguous. This authority shall be free from direction and control of the Gainesville City Commission, because not only has the governance structure been repudiated, the governance paradigm has been repudiated. In the event that any charter, provision, ordinance, resolution, decree, or any part thereof conflicts with this 1645, 1645 shall govern. You're not here to perpetuate the status quo. You're here to throw it into the garbage can once and for all. And let me read to you your very clear mandate. You shall only consider pecuniary factors and utility industry best practices standards, which do not include consideration of the furtherance of social, political, or ideological interests. Appropriate pecuniary factors and utility industry best practices are those which solely further the fiscal and financial benefit of the utility system and customers. Because the current budget is loaded
with politicized pet projects, that budget has been invalidated. And I would ask you by resolution to direct Tony to find all the trunk radio system losers that's causing GRU to hemorrhage, like the free outdoor lighting for the county, like, you know, a system where the revenues are not covering the costs. They paid a firm to go through the ordinances and look for offensive pronouns. Okay? Our money was spent on that. How about finding what's driving this massive debt? And I encourage everyone to look at the August 8th budget presentation. This debt, this massive debt, is backloaded. GRU debt service will increase every year until 2028 and not come down to last year's level until 2041 without any new borrowing at all. The debt is complex because they're trying to hold down the cost and they're just pushing it out into the future and they're adding onto it. So it's like they're sinking deeper and deeper in debt all the time.
Thank you very much, Mr.
Thank you.
Connors. Thank you, sir. Any other speakers to the motion on the floor? Okay, I have a question. Mark, maybe this is a question to you. What is your understanding why we present the budget to the city of Gainesville? I think it's,
Why the authority presents the budget on July 1st?
yes, sir, to the city of Gainesville. I understand that we present a dollar amount for transfer, but this, what I heard you say, and I've seen it, that we are to present our budget to the city.
I would not presume to be an expert on the minutia of the law, but it's my understanding that the laws, that the HB 1645 that became law requires that the authority present the budget to the city commission no later than July 1st. Now, I'm happy for
For
someone to put it-
informational only or approval? Mr. Attorney, I saw your finger fast.
The best thing I can do is direct you to the city's charter as amended by the special act. Under the 7.03 powers and duties of the authority, it specifies under 7.03G that it is a duty of the authority to prepare and submit to the city commission at least 3 months before the start of the city's fiscal year an annual budget for all authority and GRU operations, including the amount of any transfer to the city. The term of the budget shall coincide with the city's fiscal year. The amount of any transfer is subject to limitations specified in section 7.11. It is a part of the duties.
So it's clear as mud.
As defined by the legislature, the special act amending our charter. I will say that the language that mentions the term submit the budget to the city commission is the same term, frankly, that prior to the amendment to the charter was a duty of the general manager to submit the budget for the utility systems to the commission, at which time then the commission would do their legislative actions. The other distinction, though, that I would argue is relevant here is, as has been mentioned here tonight, we didn't have then and do have now is the direction by the charter that the city commission is not to, the terms is direct or, in any event, it states that the city commission is
So
not
not
going to
interfere with
be-
the operation of the
It's not
authority.
involved in the operations. So I do think it is certainly arguable that submit is different than it was before.
Because that's my big concern is, and all of a sudden now we submit to the city and they look at you, no disrespect, and say, city attorney, do we now approve this? So hopefully we can get some clarification on that.
And I think that's a lot of what people have been looking for is clarification.
Right.
But that being said, it's our duty to try to reconcile all of these. And what this accomplishes, if you take into consideration that the city commission is not the governing body over the utility systems now, that the authority is, the purpose for that duty to submit the budget 3 months before the beginning of the next fiscal year, the end of the fiscal year, certainly makes sense that it is to establish a key component of the
Their budget.
overall city budget. What is the government services contribution, which is the output coming from this board, this governing board, that will be essential to be known by that governing board. We are a city now, an organization with two governing boards.
Mhm.
And it's our job to try to reconcile and make that work.
Okay, thank you so much.
I'd like to make a comment here. I mean, I'd look at, I've got the current budget.
Right.
When I look at the current budget, you know, the elephant in the room is there, which is the services contribution or whatever they call it. And so when I look at that, and then I look at, you know, the prospect that we're gonna be looking at a future budget here, and that is the elephant in the room. And how, do we have any say over that elephant in the room that's in this budget?
Well,
And if so, then how is that contribution made? Is it made on a monthly basis? Is it made periodically in some way? And in which case, we need to take a look at that. We can't wait, and I think that's what James was after.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, I know.
What's weird is to experience what I just experienced, which is let's not talk about this stuff, but now let's talk about this
but
stuff.
it's now it's in the order to talk about it, and I think if your motion were crushed down a little bit, it would have probably passed. But that being said, I think we're gonna beat a dead horse there. And to the speaker's point, I look to my left and I look to the right. I can guarantee the budget's being looked at. I can tell you stuff that I have already met with the mayor about. And you and I don't talk a lot, but I'll be happy to sit down and have coffee with you, not at the health club. You know?
Who are you talking to? What's that? I don't drink coffee, but.
We'll figure it out. But what I'm saying is, I'm looking to my left and right. These guys are looking at the budget. I don't have to ask them that. We are literally drinking from the fire hose. I have it on my computer. You're welcome to come up. I can show you what our rates are. I can, you know, I have it. We can't solve everything in one meeting. That's why I think the workshop is so important, that we can actually say, you know, I'd love to know where Eric's been diving in. I'd love to know where James has been diving in. You know, we're all diving in to figure out what's going, but we don't have enough time to talk about it. So during the workshop, I think we will.
Yeah.
So there is a motion on the floor. We've had citizen comment. Back to the board. Any other questions from the board? Seeing none. All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none. Madam?
Mr. Chair, the next item is number 2023-1065, the approval of Code of Business Conduct for the Gainesville Regional Authority, with the recommendation that the authority discuss the draft Code of Business Conduct and adopt as is or provide direction to staff on changes.
So, Mr. Chair, there are several things in the law that direct that the board must do, the authority must do. Two of those are these two items. So one is adopting a code of business conduct. So what we did as staff, we drafted a code of business conduct, provided that to you several weeks ago, additionally in the backup to the public a week ago. And this is really an opportunity for you all as a board you can make changes to that, you can tweak it, but ultimately at some point you need to take an action to adopt a code of business conduct. I just want to add that that is something that you all, as the authority, can change in another meeting per an action of the board. But this and the next item are two things that the board has to do as part of the law that was.
Is it your understanding we take action this meeting?
I don't.
What am I hearing? We could take action and then adjust it later.
Correct.
Has everybody had an opportunity to look through it? I'm assuming the answer is yes. We can entertain a motion at this point then.
I move to accept the ethics.
Code of conduct?
Code of conduct's been presented to us.
We have a motion?
I'll second it.
We have a motion and a second. Do we have any citizens that wish to talk to the code of conduct?
Yes, Mr. Chair, I have not reviewed that, but in the original 52-page bill that Keith Perry filed in 2015, he was told that they're not gonna look at anything that lengthy. So we had to strip a lot of things out of it. And there's a lot of language in the legislative history that the city attorney could dredge up for you on this issue. You know, they weren't gonna like deal with a 52-page amendment to a 22-page charter. He was basically given a space limitation of approximately 12 pages. So when you're having to do this kind of stuff, I would look to the legislative history and compare it to whatever it comes up with. But I know that you won't have solar panels on your personal residence selling power for many times more than it costs coming in, like we have today, sir. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir. Any other citizens which wish to comment on the motion on the floor? Saying none, back to the board. All in favor? Aye? Aye. Any opposed? No. Next item, ma'am.
Mr. Chair, the next item is 2023-1066, the adoption of the State of Florida Code of Ethics for the Gainesville Regional Utilities Authority, with the recommendation that the authority adopt the State of Florida Code of Ethics.
So, Mr. Chair and members, again, this was something that in the new charter that requires the board to do. We are recommending just adopting the State of Florida's Code of Ethics. So it's nothing different. It just references that Code of Ethics for the State of Florida. We sent a link to that, or I believe the actual language in the backup. And so it's up to you if you want to do that or do something as an alternate, but you do need to move forward with some sort of Code of Ethics for the board.
I'm assuming everybody's had an opportunity to read this also?
Yes.
Okay. Any questions about it? Do we have a motion on the floor?
I move to accept Code of Ethics.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. Any citizens wish to comment on the motion on the floor? Come on now. Okay, back to the board. All in favor? Aye?
Aye.
One thing I want to just take this time to pause for 1 second is someone recently sent me the new sunshine laws, and I immediately sent it to the general manager, CEO. Make sure you read those good. Mr. Attorney, have you seen the, well, you were at the meeting in Tallahassee, so that's what sparked this. So someone sent them to me. Just make sure you're up to speed on the sunshine law. It's very important. There's been some changes.
And don't hesitate to call us. There are several resources that will be available and important to you. One being opinions from the Commission on Ethics. They're certainly a resource that you can avail yourselves of because many of these obligations are personal to you, not board obligations, so don't hesitate. And we can help direct you to those places. But also the Attorney General publishes a fantastic handbook that we can make sure we get copies for you if that's something that interests you as well, that deals with a wealth of issues regarding the Sunshine Law and open government, public records, and so forth.
Yeah, it's very important. And just for myself, when I'm meeting with any staff, I literally, I think Tony's tired of this, but if you feel I'm directing you in any point, please stop me. Let's have that conversation because we cannot direct individually any staff to do anything other than I need some files, I need some research, the normal. We can't say, hey, Tony, I want you to paint the building. I want you to do anything, especially when it comes to people that work for GRU. We have to be very sensitive to that. So in my case, I probably have that conversation, I think, in every meeting now. I just say, just a reminder, because the new law is a little sketchy. And if Tony feels or somebody feels that I'm directing them and they go to you and say, James, another guy, it's a new form of daisy chain and we could get in trouble. They don't, we do. So I'm just cautioning everybody to please read it again. And the attorney's smiling in the room. But there's my sales pitch for that.
Mr. Chair, the last item is number 2023-1074, items for Gainesville Regional Utilities Authority Board to consider for future meeting agendas with the recommendation that staff recommends that the authority determine which items they would like to discuss and when each item should be discussed.
So, Mr. Chair, as you kind of alluded to earlier in the meeting, I think all the members have jumped in with both feet and are really trying to get arms around all of what GRU entails. We're a pretty complicated utility. We have 5 services and we have 850 employees, and we're providing utility services, 24/7 to our community. And there's a lot lot that goes along with that, as long as some of these historical issues that have been brought up about our debt and other things associated with GRU. With that being said, board members have asked a lot of different questions about a lot of different topics. And we want to listen to the board and be guided by the board of what's important and what our priorities are. And so what we're attempting to do with this item is give you all an opportunity. You cannot speak to each other outside of this meeting. This is an opportunity for you all to speak to each other and ultimately provide some direction to staff in terms of items we bring up in future meetings. Staff's always going to bring some items that are business items that need to be done, but there are other things that we could be discussing if the board wants to bring them up in an accelerated manner, talking about some of the topics that were brought up tonight. This list is not meant to be an exhaustive list at all. There's been several items since we posted the agenda that several members have brought up above and beyond this. So this is an opportunity for you all to identify those and prioritize them. The last thing I'll say before I turn it over to you all is the chair and I did have the discussion of you can do some of this tonight, or we could have a workshop in the next couple of weeks where we have a meeting. It'll be a public noticed meeting, but it'll be a workshop where you all can really talk more freely and try to determine from your all's perspective what are the priorities and what things to bring forth. As staff, we can guide some of that and make recommendations, but you all ultimately identify those priorities. So the floor is yours, and you all can go in the direction you would like to.
Let me start off with a bit of an apology. I do, as a chair, I do meet with the CEO, general manager, and we do set the agenda. We did not know what to expect, quite frankly, and I want to thank everybody for being a great audience tonight. We didn't know if we were going to have 10 or 1,000. We didn't know what discussions we were going to have. We had the great unknown. We did have some lengthy discussions about priorities, and we did prioritize what we put on the agenda with the anticipation that we would discuss what will be on the next agenda. It is my sincere hope that any member up here that wants something put on the agenda will be put on the agenda. I will always support that. That's why I sort of asked for a modification a few times, to be honest with you. Because I think we don't know where you've been at. I mean, you could have discovered so much that needs to be brought up. So I do want to apologize that I stifled anybody. That was not my goal. I did not know what to expect tonight, and if I'd have known it was going to be very peaceful and everything was good, I think I would have agreed to expand it. So my apologies I think you had 2 or 3 items here that I squashed on. I do apologize, sir.
Thank you, Chair Carter.
Okay, you see what's on the future agenda.
What is the process based on my earlier conversation? This will be the 4th time I would be asking for items to be put on the agenda. So I'm going to yield that and say, you all heard what it is that needs to be spoken about. Regardless of the timing, it needs to be discussed. But what's going to be interesting for a person like me is the timing in which you guys choose to talk about it. That says a lot for a guy like me. Because if we continue punting this stuff down the road, then we are nothing more than a group of people taking up space. What we've done today is simply avoid talking about the painful issues. So I yield on bringing up anything because I do not want to be rejected a 4th time. But you guys know what it is that needs to be discussed, and when you guys bring it up, I would love to have that conversation with you guys.
I have a few things. I
Yes, sir.
very much would support a workshop where we could all discuss and have open dialogue so we can learn each other's perspectives. I think we would like to have a conversation around independent legal counsel and the understanding around attorney-client privilege. I want to dive in more on the debt reduction plan. I want to understand how the debt reduction plan was developed, and I want to understand the alternatives that were considered so that we can rehash that and go back and make sure that we all agree. As I understand, one component of the debt reduction plan are a series of rate increases over a period of years. And I really would like to dive into that and then just understand what the alternatives to that are. I want to spend some time talking about net metering and voided cost and what the policies around that are. And so I just, again, as we look at the running GRU for our customers, I want to understand the cost to all the other customers for that. And then finally, I know the GRU is working on the long-term plan. What's the term that it's called, Tony?
Integrated resource
The
plan.
integrated resource plan. I think that's gonna need to have a lot of our time and attention, because that plan really determines what we do over the next 10 years. And I think those are some big decision making there. So for me, that's the time that I would like to have where we could really have some open dialogue among the board.
And I figured you were diving in like James, and between the two of you, quite frankly, you've hit most of mine. So, Madam Clerk, I would like to capture Mr. Coates's motions. He doesn't need to repeat them. Yeah, Mr. Lawson's, sir? Anything you want? My thought is, in hopefully maybe 2 weeks, we have a workshop. Out of that workshop will become most likely our agenda.
Yeah, at some point, maybe the next time, a little bit of a conversation about our power plants and our power mix, our fuel sources.
It's really exciting, and Tony laughs at me because I'm such a geek about this, but it's so cool what they do, and when they do it and why they do it.
Yeah, it is.
You'll enjoy that. God, I gotta stop this, Tony.
So I think we could tie that into, just to jump in, I'm sorry, Mr. Chair,
No,
but
go
I think
for
we
it.
can tie that into the integrated resource plan discussion. So that could be both the future as well as what our current mix of generation is and how we even do our economic dispatch and all of that. That can be part of that IRP discussion.
Yeah, so the way I see this, and it will be just simply a workshop, the public's very welcome to come and observe. We're not gonna have back and forth discussions at that time with the public. It'll just be for information only. And out of that, you'll see probably our agenda evolve out of that. So if we could get some dates going as sooner than later, and I will probably weigh in at the last because I'm pretty flexible.
So Mr. Chair, just to clarify direction, it sounds like we want to try to do something before Thanksgiving.
Yes.
Is that?
Yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Okay.
I think,
So
I will say, I regret, I wish we would have started off with a couple of quick meetings. I know, James.
I'm learning how this is working, Craig, and
It's
I'm not
backwards.
impressed.
Well, okay, that's fine. But the long and short, I think everybody's learned a lot, and I think we need to sit down and have that discussion.
Did you just recommend that we have more frequency meetings? Is that what
Well,
you're
I'm saying, I'm recommending that we have a workshop in at least 2 weeks.
Okay.
At that point, we will discuss all those options. It's
I think
gonna,
that's a
it's gonna
great
be a
idea.
non-agended, open conversation.
I think
We
it's a great
discuss-
idea.
Well, then I would say someone makes a motion.
I move that we have the workshop when staff can provide us a date that works for the four of us, and whoever wants to come, yeah, sounds great.
Looking for a second.
I'll second it.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Any citizens wishing to comment on the workshop coming up?
I want to make sure we're, got this agenda straight. The government services contribution isn't just the 15.3 million that's going to get raked off the top, sir, as you well know. There's the indirect contributions, like you're going to be billed for the city attorney.
$3.7 million.
And the Auditor General found that they're marking up the services and basically goring GRU. Not that anybody that doesn't answer to Tony should be working for GRU. Because otherwise, if you have people answering to the city commission working for GRU, then you're not free from the direction and control of GRU, and you are not in conformity with the clear language of this charter. And anyone that thinks that they're gonna just go back and rethink this after all the years that it took to get this passed, they're delusional. Also, fuel levelization. They don't adjust the fuel. So they either charge too much or not enough. So when you talk about rates, ask Tony what the fuel levelization balance is. I believe it's negative. I believe it's been negative for a long time. It's always outside the range prescribed by ordinance because it's a politicized number, like everything else about GRU. And you're here to put an end to that. So fuel is 25% of the GRU budget. So pay close attention to the fuel levelization balance. I've seen it positive 32 million. I've seen it negative 26 million. It's a politicized number, and Tony used to be able to set it without even going to the commission. Those powers were stripped away July 1st. And he's supposed to update you when he's out of bounds. Thanks.
Thank you, sir. Do we have another speaker?
Hello, Joe Beatty again. I want to thank Mr. Coates for what you said earlier, for you being strong, and I hope you listened to him. At the first meeting, he suggested that you meet every 2 weeks. I was a little surprised that you all thought once a month was enough. I'm glad to see that you want to have a workshop soon. You really do need to get into this fast, and you need to understand. And as I said before, and I think some of you have alluded to, though you didn't want to talk about it, that you really need to dig into the budget. And the budget can be, the current budget can be amended. You were talking about the calendar. I'm sorry I didn't get up at that point. It didn't hit me till citizen comment was closed. But, before you start setting the calendar and looking at next year's budget, look at this year's budget and amend it. I think you'll find a lot of things that you can cut. As I said, I've been watching this. Other people, Mr. Conish and several of us have really been trying to, address these issues for years. And I'm glad to see that it seems like you now all have a little fire. And I do appreciate Mr. Coates for standing his ground, because sitting at city commissions over the past years, there's nobody really standing and working for us. So I know you're all working for us. I'm not casting any aspersions on anybody else, but I especially appreciate your tenacity. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker, please.
Angela Castile again. I also wish that you guys would have listened to Mr. Coates, especially for the rates. We have many people that are seeing double bills again, not double in like months, but their bills have gone significantly up. And that's a problem. This is what many of us are having a problem with, is that the rates have been extremely high. The city decided to raise the rates, 3% and 5% for the water. And they're complaining about HB 1645, but at the same time, they didn't care that they raised the rates for other people. Thank you.
Thank you so much, ma'am, for your time. Do we have any other speakers at this time? Okay, seeing none, back to the board. We have a motion on the floor. All in favor? Aye? Aye. Any opposed? Seeing none.
Mr. Chair, the next item is member comment.
I'd love to start off, because I don't know, once you get started, I don't know if I'll be able to. I'm just kidding.
No, it's cool. I love you, Craig. You know that.
I know. Just for clarifications, as the chair, I have met with the mayor, met briefly with the city manager. I think as the chair, I'm supposed to do some of that stuff. I've been to Tallahassee. The CEO and general manager and I went to Tallahassee. I went to our legislation delegation, gave a quick update. I felt that we were hitting the ground running as much as we could and going forward, and then we left. I've made phone calls to attorneys. I feel that's, you know, we're up here, and I think most of you guys know us, and ladies out there know us. I have been calling. I'm in a trust but verify mode. Two of the attorneys are sitting in the room. I don't pull any punches. I called Scott today. I called Stephanie Marcham earlier. She is not in a position to talk to us right now, and she recommended that I call Scott, so I did call Scott. He's familiar with that, and I'm pleased that you have chose to come here to this meeting tonight. And I think that we need to look at everything. Quite frankly, I trust our attorney wholeheartedly. I'm not sure how you can serve two masters. I think that's a burden on you, sir. I'm not sure, and I need to figure it out, and I think this board needs to figure it out. We need a definitive answer, but if there is going to be litigation and you're one, the city's one side and we're the other, you and I briefly talked on this, I think we almost have to hire independent counsel or counsel outside the city for the complexity of it. So I just want to know the options and opinions of everybody, and that's my thoughts on that. I'm not sure how, you know, everything could run through your office if we're going to be an independent board, and I don't know that. And understand, when we're doing this stuff, there isn't anybody, we would stand, I mean, let me speak for myself. I trust him wholeheartedly. I trust Stephanie Marcham wholeheartedly. I can go down the list of our employees. We have amazing employees. But we're given a unique task here, and our task is to figure this out. And you know, where some people say these lawsuits are nuisance, well, I think they're gonna figure something out. I'm not really mad. I mean, my wife says, why aren't you mad? I said, well, I don't take it personal. It's gonna help us figure out some stuff. And so I just want everybody to know that's what I'm doing. I'm having conversations. I'm looking at budgets. Nobody figured out anything yet, but we're still paying the city commission and their staff. Why are we doing that? Am I right? Nobody caught that. I'm in the budget, people. I can tell you what we paid for coffee. I mean, I'm taking this real serious. But I also know that we all had to dive in, and I think if we had a meeting 2 weeks out, I'm not sure how productive we would have been, but I do agree we're gonna have to have a couple of workshops. So I just want everything on the table, that I'm talking to attorneys, I have 3 or 4 people that I'm talking to and just running things by them, and that's what we do as business people. And that's what I'm doing. And at the end of the day, I really hope that this can wind up like the airport authority. And Tony is so tired of hearing about that. But I've asked everybody, the city and the airport authority get along marvelous. I mean, you know, we bring stuff to you. We have an attorney that we hire. He's at every meeting, he advises us. We do have to bring stuff to the city commission. We all are on the same page. It's a wonderful relationship. That is my goal for this board. And there was a lot of eggs broken, if you look at the history of that airport, before the beautiful omelet was made, and that's my goal here as the chair. Thank you. Anybody else?
I want to give people an opportunity.
I just want to say, I just want to thank Tony and the senior leadership for all the efforts you've put into the orientation of us, the time that we spent at the Deerfield sites and that water treatment. Your leaders and teams were incredibly professional and very impressive, and gives me a lot of confidence in GRU. So I just want to say thank you for that. Thanks.
I'll second that. I had a great time in all the tours and the updates, and that's all I have. It's all to you, James.
Oh, boy. You know, I've contemplated this meeting. Should I read my speech or let you guys enjoy the repercussions of the decision? And that's what I'm going to do, because what I'm going to do is trust the board that made the decision, which means that I'm going to play the game and be part of the team. Is that a fair statement? Which means that you guys didn't want to hear it today, so you're not going to. It's a simple concept. So what that gives me the opportunity to do is to have an additional 30 days to find more. And that I appreciate. I seriously do. I want to echo what these guys said and said that I have the utmost confidence in GRU. Let's just cut to the chase. Every person I have met at GRU is a quality person. Quality. And if anyone thinks so, shame on you. That's horrible. What we're doing up here is incredibly difficult. This is so unnatural for a person who likes to wear jeans and a t-shirt and skateboard during a meeting with my staff. But yet I can't conduct myself, and I say words that I'm not supposed to. I got a new replacement instead of the S show. It's going to be bovine scatology. I think that's appropriate. But the end result is that this is what you guys get. This is what you guys get. And I need to understand if you guys can work with me or not. Because so far, I'm isolated by my own board. What's most interesting is that the people here pointed out things and data that's amazing. But yet you guys didn't want to hear it. It is what it is. I am known publicly to be slightly passive aggressive. I get that. And strangely enough, a person who has spoken against me publicly many times actually was super kind to me. Holy wow, what in the world is going on today? Thank you so much. That was incredible. This is a person who spoke against me publicly because I'm a weapon monger and a variety of other things. But the truth of the matter is that, holy smokes, I've spent the last 30 days meeting with hundreds of people and GRU employees. Hundreds. All sides, Democrat, Republicans, non-parties, attorneys. I openly met with Hutch and his group, and frankly, they're a great group of people, which is why I asked for Hutch to have some 5 minutes. Sorry. But the end result is that, look, everyone needs to be heard. But the way we're doing it is unnatural and ineffective. If you guys would have read some of the statements in the auditing, you would understand that even the auditors say that this is an ineffective way to run a business. How about that? That's interesting. That's a fact. It's not an opinion. What I was going to do tonight was state a series of facts. Now, my guess is that a lot of people have made up rumors. Yes. I was going to talk to Tony Cunningham and have a discussion about his employment. Yeah, I think it's important because last week he had to call all of us and have personal independent meetings, which mine was really nasty because of me, not because of him, about his job. That's horrible. That's history repeating itself. I actually told him that. What happened to that man, Ed Bolarski, who saved this community millions and millions of dollars, gets tossed aside because he points out to the city commission that they're wasteful spending. What in the heck is going on? Right? Guys, I need to know if you guys want to work with me on this, which means that this is the personality you get. I'm direct. I have no filter. I have way too much education and a lot of experience in areas that you may not understand. So I'm asking you guys, do you want me to stay? Or do you want me to get my stuff, take the knowledge that I have that all these amazing people are asking for, and you guys denied it? So I put my faith and my position in your hands. I am packed and ready to go. So I'm asking for a vote from my board. Do you want me to stay or do you want me to go? Because I am going to be this way every meeting because I'm sick and tired of East Gainesville being spoken about and no one does anything to help those people. We could have helped those people tonight. And now they gotta wait another 30 days, another GRU bill, and it's Christmas for crying out loud next month. But because somebody didn't research something or someone didn't wanna have a conversation about data, now those people gotta find money to feed their family and pay their GRU bill. Is that acceptable? And I say no. So I ask you guys officially now, if you don't wanna work with me, simply raise your hand and I'll resign. That's where I'm at because I'm not gonna change. I'm always gonna be the thorn in the side of people who are doing wrong. So I ask now, by show of hands, if there's 2 or more, I'm gone.
Can we talk?
I'm done now. Thank you very
Okay.
much.
So, first time I met you, this is the way you were. You were a little bit more wide open. And you and I immediately solved the problem. Within 15 minutes, I had a solution. So you and I are wired a lot alike. I know you're gonna bring a lot to the table. I love the diversity of this board. I conveyed that to that general manager, CEO. I said, this is great. I mean, Eric brings something to the board that none of us will probably ever experience in a lifetime. I bring a different experience to the board. I'm not educated like you gentlemen are. I'm a businessman that wound up being a city commissioner. So I'm more of a grassroots type of person. And then we have an attorney. Then we have you, which is you think different than most human beings on earth. And that's a compliment to this board. We need you, okay? I think I tried to do everything I could tonight I want every motion and I want everything that you want to discuss on the agenda. I think it came out very overwhelming and I was trying to get it, I tried to get it repositioned. At some point as the chair, I felt that I had to move on. I didn't have a second. This board would be missing without you. I will say that because you connect with a certain brand of people like I do. And for this person, I want you here. If I didn't, understand, I knew your name before I accepted this position. It would have been real easy for me to say, I can't work with him. You were one of the people I was excited to work with because I've seen you solve problems. You are out of the box. And you know something? That's gonna make this board entertaining. People will tune in with popcorn. That's my speech.
Eric?
Looking forward to working with you.
Yeah, me too. Me too.
Then
I think you're bringing a lot to the table.
Then I guess I'm not resigning tonight. Thank you very much. I enjoy you all. Meeting adjourned. I can't say that. I just want to.
Well, you could make a motion to adjourn the meeting and I'm sure you wouldn't get a whole bunch of argument.
I would like to make a motion that we adjourn this meeting.
And I'm not taking comment on that motion. We're adjourned. Thank you so much, everybody.
Eric, thank you.
James? Yes, sir. You made it interesting.
I don't know if that's good or bad.
No, it is good.
So yeah, my guy